Some people carry their ambition in their calendar. Others wear it in their walk. But for those who understand the subtle language of energy, the most powerful signal often rests quietly on the hand, encircling a finger, hugging the skin, silently broadcasting intent. A ring in the right place isn't just a decoration, it becomes a declaration. And in Feng Shui, it becomes something even more precise. A tool of structure, a vessel for flow, a transmitter of frequency that can quietly shift the entire way life responds to you. You don't need to be born wealthy to hold wealth energy. You don't need to recite mantras or count mala beads to access alignment. Sometimes what you need is much simpler, a symbol that understands its place, a form that understands function, and a decision made not from superstition, but from strategy. Because in Feng Shui, where you place something changes what it does. The same ring worn on the wrong finger can disrupt flow, block clarity, and cause subtle friction in your field. But that same ring, chosen with intention and positioned with awareness, can act as a magnet. Not for luck, but for alignment. Not for sudden windfalls, but for lasting momentum. This is not about lucky charms or mythical creatures passed down through folklore. This is about energetic engineering. Your hands are not just anatomical tools. They are maps. They are the conductors of everything you give, everything you receive, everything you hold, and everything you let go. And on this map, each finger carries a unique energetic channel. Your thumb governs power. Your index guides ambition. Your middle finger holds structure and wealth. Your ring finger governs relationships, visibility, and long-term support. Your little finger, the smallest, governs communication, cleverness, and short-term luck. Most people never think about this. They choose rings for aesthetics. But energy doesn't care about fashion. It cares about function. And in this video, we're going to break that function down. Piece by piece, we'll look at how wearing a ring on your left hand activates receiving energy, while wearing one on your right amplifies projecting energy. We'll talk about how symbols like coins, obsidian, and certain shapes affect your energy field. Not because they're magical, but because they carry frequencies that either reinforce or scatter your intent. We'll explore why certain fingers are better for wealth flow than others, and how seemingly small decisions, like letting someone else try on your ring or storing it on the floor, can disrupt the very signal you're trying to strengthen. And stay with me, because later in this episode, we'll take a closer look at a public figure whose approach to jewelry, whether consciously or not, mirrors many of these energetic principles. It's not just about what they wear. It's about how they carry it, how they place it, and how the world responds to their structure. Now, before we dive deeper into finger functions, ring materials, and practical Feng Shui activation methods, I want to invite you to take a simple action. If you're here because you're ready to see energy differently, if you're curious, open, and ready to work with your space instead of against it, then I ask you to support this channel by tapping that like button, sharing this with someone who could benefit, or subscribing to New Day Mindfulness. Your support helps me reach our 2,000 subscriber milestone and allows me to continue creating thoughtful, grounded, high-quality content designed to bring ancient energetic logic into real modern life. Not through superstition, not through overhyped promises, but through structure, through alignment, through a deeper understanding of how form becomes function. Because the truth is, wealth doesn't show up because you want it. It shows up because you're ready to hold it. And readiness in Feng Shui is physical. It's spatial, it's behavioral, it's what you wear, where you place it, and why. A ring, when activated correctly, can become more than ornament. It can become a quiet companion in your daily rhythm, a reminder of who you are and who you're becoming. So take a breath, settle into this space with me, and prepare to see your hands, not as extensions of habit, but as instruments of energy. We're about to decode the subtle mechanics of personal power, one finger at a time, one choice at a time, and maybe, just maybe, one ring at a time. Let me know if you'd like this introduction followed by a full script version of your rewritten outline. Your hands are an energy map. In Feng Shui, the hand is not merely a mechanical extension of the body. It is a dynamic energy field, a personal compass that holds and transmits specific intentions through gesture, pressure, and presence. Each finger, from the sturdy thumb to the delicate pinky, operates like a channel. It draws in energy, filters it, focuses it, and then directs it outward. And while most people go their whole lives without thinking twice about which ring they place where, the truth is this: your fingers are not interchangeable. Each one governs a distinct dimension of your energetic expression. And when you wear a symbolic object, like a ring, on a finger without understanding that finger's frequency, you don't just mute your intent, you may unknowingly distort it. Let's begin with the foundational understanding in classical Feng Shui. The left hand is the receiving hand. The right hand is the projecting hand. The left is yin, quiet, absorptive. It pulls in nourishment, emotion, support, and opportunity. The right is yang, expressive, active. It directs energy outward into action, communication, decision, and output. When you wear a ring on the left hand, you're signaling that you're open to receiving a certain kind of frequency. When you wear it on the right, you're reinforcing that energy through action or influence. But to understand where and why to wear a ring, we must first understand the symbolic function of each finger. Each one is energetically distinct. Each one, if overburdened or incorrectly activated, can create subtle imbalances that ripple outward into your relationships, finances, clarity, and personal power. The thumb represents personal will, drive, and the capacity to lead without being pulled off center. In Chinese metaphysical philosophy, it is associated with individuality and inner authority. When activated, the thumb helps you push forward with intention, make grounded choices, and resist pressure from others. Wearing a ring on the thumb can stimulate strong personal resolve, but it can also harden the ego or amplify internal tension if worn without emotional regulation. This is especially true on the right thumb, which intensifies externalized control. Unless you are deliberately anchoring into a role of executive command or dealing with indecisiveness, it is generally advised not to wear heavy symbolic rings on the thumb. It can overstimulate the metal element in the body, leading to rigidity or exhaustion from overexertion. Instead, this finger is best left free, symbolizing freedom of will, not constriction. The index finger governs ambition, direction, strategic thinking, and growth. It is aligned with the energy of projection, how we reach, how we pursue, how we point toward goals, both visible and subconscious. The left index finger is ideal for calling in new opportunities, professional clarity, and decision-making support. The right index, when activated, can heighten one's capacity to command attention and influence others, but if misused, may lead to energetic overreach or constant striving without rest. Rings worn on the index should be selected with a specific goal in mind. Are you seeking career expansion, a fresh vision, new leadership roles? Use a natural stone or metal that balances the wood element, such as green aventurine or brass, and wear it only during seasons of growth or directional recalibration. Be mindful not to wear overly ornate rings here, as excess stimulation can cause your mind to scatter or obsess over control. The middle finger is the central axis of the hand and governs wealth, groundedness, balance, and responsibility. This is the ideal location for wealth rings, particularly on the left hand. The middle finger corresponds with earth energy in Feng Shui, reliable, patient, supportive, and deeply stabilizing. It governs not just your money, but how you hold your money, your relationship to accumulation, savings, structure, and management. A ring here helps anchor financial intention, create clearer boundaries, and reduce impulsivity. On the right middle finger, this same energy becomes expressive, ideal for those teaching or leading in matters of finance, architecture, or stewardship. However, if a ring is too tight, too sharp, or too symbolic here, it may cause you to become fixated on control or materialism. The best rings for this finger are those made of grounding stones, such as black tourmaline, obsidian, smoky quartz, or jade, and should be worn consistently, especially during periods of financial planning or debt resolution. This is the finger that says, "I'm not just attracting wealth, I'm ready to hold it." The ring finger, perhaps the most commonly adorned, governs relationships, long-term commitments, visibility, and legacy. In Feng Shui, this finger is tied to the fire element, into one's capacity to shine outward, whether in love, influence, or creativity. The left ring finger draws in support and emotional nourishment, which is why wedding bands are traditionally worn here. It symbolizes unity, devotion, and harmony between inner and outer worlds. The right ring finger projects these qualities outward, ideal for people in public roles, performers, counselors, or anyone whose livelihood involves emotional resonance. Rings here should be chosen with care. Too many stones on this finger can overwhelm your field, leading to codependence or fatigue. Choose materials like rose quartz for compassion, citrine for joyful magnetism, or carnelian for creative spark. Never wear rings from broken relationships or heavy grief here. They reinforce unresolved emotional scripts. Instead, let this finger hold energy that uplifts and connects, rather than clings and remembers. The little finger, or pinky, is the messenger. It governs communication, intelligence, short-term fortunes, and social agility. In Feng Shui, it aligns with the water element in the energy of rapid exchange. Ideas, introductions, negotiations, contracts. It is often overlooked but profoundly influential in business and persuasion. Wearing a ring on the left pinky enhances receptivity to news, feedback, and unexpected gains. The right pinky amplifies your ability to speak clearly, sell confidently, and charm intuitively. This is a powerful location for traders, salespeople, creatives, or anyone involved in media and negotiation. Choose materials that support quick flow and boundary balance, like clear quartz, aquamarine, or tiger's eye. Because the pinky is physically the weakest finger, avoid heavy or chunky rings that overwhelm it. Such choices can metaphorically cause your messages to be misheard or your ideas to become scattered. To better understand the importance of finger selection, let's return to the foundational metaphor. Your hand is a Bagua map. It is an energetic compass of your personal field. You wouldn't place metal in the wood sector of your home. You wouldn't place fire in the water zone. So why would you place a symbol of structure on the finger of speed? Why place a ring of power on a finger designed to receive softness? Misplacement creates dissonance. And dissonance, over time, leads to friction. That friction doesn't always show up as chaos. It shows up as subtle misalignment, delayed income, confusing relationships, missed opportunities, or chronic restlessness. Not because the ring was wrong, but because its placement contradicted its purpose. When you align symbol, finger, and intent, you are no longer just wearing an accessory. You're building energetic structure. You're reinforcing the frequency you wish to embody. You are telling your nervous system, your field, your environment, this is what I'm open to. This is what I'm here to project. That is how form becomes function. That is how a simple ring becomes a tool of transformation. Not through superstition, but through structure. Not through magic, but through alignment. And it all begins not with the stone you choose, but with the finger you ask to hold it. Because in Feng Shui, energy always responds to placement, and the body, like the home, is always speaking. The only question is, are we listening? Choosing a symbolic ring with function, not just style, in the world of objects, a ring is perhaps one of the most deceptively simple. Small enough to go unnoticed, elegant enough to be admired, light enough to be carried for a lifetime. But in Feng Shui, simplicity does not mean insignificance. Quite the opposite. A ring is one of the most condensed forms of personal symbolism. It rests directly on the body's energy lines. It circulates with your pulse. It moves as you speak, gesture, and touch. And unlike clothing or furniture, which surround and support, a ring embeds itself within your energy field. It sits on bone, skin, nerve, and energy. That's why in Feng Shui, a ring must never be treated as mere accessory. It's not there to impress. It's there to encode, to program, to hold intention like a compass dial pointing inward and outward at once. The mistake most people make is choosing rings based solely on style. What looks attractive in the mirror, what matches an outfit, what gleams under bright light. But Qi doesn't respond to shine. It responds to structure. And the structure of a symbolic object begins with material, then expands into form, and finally concludes in placement. This is not about aesthetics. This is about alignment. A symbolic ring isn't meant to reflect a trend. It's meant to reinforce a frequency. And that frequency, when chosen with discernment, can help stabilize your focus, amplify your intent, and direct wealth or personal energy more effectively than 100 affirmations spoken into thin air. Let's start where most people don't, with what not to wear. Because in Feng Shui, removing friction is just as powerful as adding strength. First, avoid rings made from inauthentic materials. That includes plastic crystals, lab-grown glass dyed to resemble jade, resin replicas of natural stones, or anything that looks vibrant but feels weightless. These objects carry no energetic density. They are hollow signatures. And when placed on the body, they do not ground qi. They scatter it. A plastic citrine ring may look beautiful to the eye, but to your energy field, it feels like static. And over time, that static can disrupt your ability to focus, to rest, or to make clear financial decisions. The second item on the avoidance list is rings with broken parts, missing stones, bent bands, cracked inlays, or anything visibly incomplete. In Feng Shui, brokenness is not just visual disrepair, it's symbolic dissonance. A ring that's incomplete sends a message to your subconscious that structure can't be trusted, that beauty doesn't last, or that support is flawed. You may not consciously feel this message, but your energetic body hears it every time you look down. Especially dangerous are rings that appear whole from afar, but are subtly damaged. These teach your energy to tolerate distortion, to overlook instability, to accept partial alignment. And as we know, what is tolerated at the symbolic level eventually leaks into habit, expectation, and result. The third and more nuanced ring to avoid is one that was gifted by someone with unresolved emotional ties. Perhaps it came from an ex-partner, a relative whose relationship with you was complicated, a friend whose jealousy was never fully addressed. In energetic logic, objects absorb resonance. When you wear a ring tied to an unresolved emotional frequency, you are not just wearing the metal, you're wearing the residue. This doesn't mean you must reject every gift, but it does mean you must test the energy. Hold the ring in your palm, breathe. Ask your body, does this feel like support or does it feel like history? If the answer leans toward burden, Set it aside. Thank it for what it taught you, and either cleanse it thoroughly or return it to rest. Now that we've cleared the field, we move toward curation. What rings support wealth, stability, and focus in Feng Shui? The answer is not universal. It depends on your specific energy needs. But the guiding principles are consistent. First, choose rings made from natural stones and noble materials. These include jade for longevity and balance, obsidian for progression and grounding, citrine for abundance and optimism, black agate for boundary setting, and clear quartz for energy amplification. These stones are not magic. They are memory holders. Their crystalline structure interacts with your electromagnetic field in quiet, measurable ways. You don't need to believe in miracles to feel the difference. Try meditating with a natural stone in your hand and a synthetic stone in the other. Your nervous system will tell you what science hasn't measured yet. Second, pay attention to symbolic motifs. In Feng Shui, certain shapes carry encoded meaning that directs energy flow. Spirals represent continuous movement and expansion, ideal for those who feel stuck in cycles or stagnation. Coins represent harmonization of heaven, earth, and human, the classical wealth triad, making them ideal for entrepreneurs or anyone rebuilding financial foundation. Celestial motifs such as the crescent moon or eight-point star speak to rhythm, clarity, and visionary growth. Avoid overly complex symbols or aggressive motifs, spikes, flames, or fragmented designs, as they tend to activate agitation rather than harmony. The best symbolic rings for energy support are those that mirror nature's design, curved, balanced, and intentional. Third, don't underestimate weight. A ring with physical grounding helps settle scattered energy. Lighter rings may feel more comfortable, but they often lack the tactile anchoring that a heavier band provides. When choosing a ring for wealth focus, choose one that you can feel, but not one that fatigues your hand. This is especially useful for people who overthink or spend most of their day in mental activity. A grounding ring brings your energy out of the head and into the hand, the site of action, manifestation, and movement. One of the most powerful practical tips for those struggling with financial chaos, unclear income patterns, or emotional anxiety around money is to begin with a ring that contains 3 natural stones set equidistant around a simple band. The number 3 in Feng Shui is deeply meaningful. It represents heaven, intention, earth, support, and human action, the 3 points needed to create functional change. Wearing this ring on your left middle or ring finger allows your energy field to stabilize. The stones work not as attraction devices, but as directional anchors. They help you remember that wealth isn't summoned, it's held, and holding requires structure. This is not about buying expensive jewelry or chasing symbolic novelty. It's about selecting one object that reinforces the version of yourself you are building. The version who treats energy with care. The version who does not wear broken intentions, scatter their signal, or collect emotional residue disguised as fashion. The version who knows that one clean object, chosen with reverence and worn with clarity, can become a tool of transformation. So when you next look at your ring collection, ask yourself, which of these carries my energy forward? Which of these holds my values? Which of these distracts, distorts, or delays my frequency? Remove what confuses, honor what strengthens, and choose the next ring not for how it sparkles under artificial light, but for how it resonates with the architecture of your intentions. Because in Feng Shui, everything visible shapes the invisible, and what you wear on your finger becomes what you carry into every handshake, every deal, every decision. That's not superstition, that's energy translated into structure. A ring worn well is not a charm, it's a commitment, and what it holds is the future you're ready to meet. The Feng Shui of ring placement. When it comes to energetic alignment, nothing is truly random, especially not in Feng Shui. In a world where form creates function and space becomes structure, even the smallest placement carries significance. And yet, among all the personal choices we make daily, what we wear, where we sit, how we decorate, perhaps none is more overlooked and simultaneously more symbolic than the decision of which finger to place a ring on. Most people think of rings as fashion accessories or sentimental tokens. But in classical energy theory, and especially through the lens of Feng Shui, each finger is more than anatomy. It is a conduit, a carrier of specific chi pathways that govern different aspects of your life: wealth, influence, support, expansion, focus, and clarity. To wear a ring without understanding the function of the finger is like planting a tree without checking the soil. Even the most beautiful roots won't take if the foundation can't support it. Let's begin where most people sense importance but rarely decode: the middle finger. Often overlooked for its simplicity or misunderstood for its cultural associations, the middle finger on the left hand holds the energetic frequency of wealth retention, financial equilibrium, and grounded structure. In the body's energetic hierarchy, this finger is the axis. It stabilizes the field. When you wear a ring on this finger, especially one designed with intention, you are reinforcing your personal ability to hold wealth, manage responsibilities, and support a stable financial environment. This is not the finger for manifesting sudden fortune. It's the finger for protecting the wealth you've earned. It reinforces the earth element in Feng Shui, anchoring the swirling energy of ambition into a calm basin where things can take root and grow. Choose rings here that are not too sharp or jagged. Let them be substantial, quiet, and composed, just like the energy they're meant to stabilize. Shift next to the left index finger, a zone traditionally associated with direction, expansion, confidence, and strategic clarity. When someone points with their index finger, they are not just indicating, they are claiming. In Feng Shui terms, this finger is wood element, full of movement, curiosity, and vision. It's where boldness begins and where stagnation ends. Wearing a ring on the left index finger helps stimulate openness to opportunity, clearer decision-making, and a more assertive sense of professional direction. It's particularly beneficial for those entering new ventures, launching projects, or seeking to rebuild self-trust after a period of doubt. This placement says energetically, I'm ready to move. Use this finger when your life calls for momentum, but balance it with materials that stabilize that motion, like brass, jade, or green aventurine. Avoid lightweight or flashy rings here. Energy that is too quick becomes impulsive. Energy that is too airy becomes inconsistent. The ring finger on the left hand is often emotionally loaded, and for good reason. It governs long-term support, harmony in partnerships, and the ability to align internal value with external commitment. In Feng Shui, this finger is fire element, bright, expressive, relational. Wearing a wealth ring on this finger does not mean you are marrying your money, but it does indicate that you are forming a relationship with it, that you're not just chasing income, but seeking stability, legacy, and interdependence. It's an excellent finger for those who are co-managing finances with a partner, starting a family, or making joint investments. It supports not only material harmony, but emotional security in matters of wealth. It is particularly strong when paired with stones like citrine, rose quartz, or pink tourmaline, symbols of harmonious expansion and loving containment. When you place a ring here, you are saying to the universe, I value what sustains me, and I choose to sustain it in return. Now we move to the right little finger, which governs communication, agility, short-term contracts, and social ease. This is the channel of expression, the voice of the energy field. In classical metaphysical systems, The pinky finger is linked with Mercury, the messenger planet. It is swift, clever, precise, and often underestimated. Wearing a ring on this finger activates the energetic ability to speak clearly, negotiate successfully, and respond intuitively to fast-moving opportunities. This is not the finger for long-term investments. It is the finger for calculated moves, fast ideas, and side income development. Freelancers, writers, salespeople, consultants, and those navigating short cycles of opportunity would benefit from activating this channel. It's best stimulated with stones like tiger's eye, clear quartz, or hematite, materials that carry rapid energy but stay aligned with personal integrity. Be cautious though. This finger is delicate. Don't overwhelm it with bulky, aggressive designs. A small, intelligent ring does more than a loud, unfocused one. Remember, this finger whispers, don't force it to shout, and then we must address the thumb. Though often used in casual modern ring styling, the thumb in classical energy systems is not meant for over-adornment. It represents personal willpower, ego strength, and internal authority. To place a large or symbolic ring here is to amplify pressure on the self. The thumb is the governor of your unique direction. It is the part of the hand that stands apart. It pushes, it resists, it stabilizes. That's why in Feng Shui, overstimulating the thumb with dense or dramatic symbols can lead to emotional fatigue, perfectionism, or blocked receptivity. When you wear a ring here, especially on the right thumb, you're sending a message of command but also isolation. Unless you are in a position where extreme personal strength is needed, such as a CEO navigating public scrutiny or a leader during crisis, it's wise to leave this finger free. If you must wear a ring here, keep it minimal. One material, no sharp edges, no symbolic overload. Now, to understand these placements more deeply, think in metaphors. Your fingers are not just digits. They are garden beds for specific types of energy. Each one is designed for a different crop. And just like you wouldn't plant a cactus in the middle of a rice paddy, you shouldn't place a symbol of permanence in a channel designed for movement. The middle finger is earth. The index is wood. The ring finger is fire. The pinky is water. The thumb is metal. Each element has its own rhythm, and your rings should complement, not conflict, with that rhythm. When you align placement with purpose, you create coherence. Coherence is what transforms a simple object into a structural ally. Most people wear their rings without thought, then wonder why their energy feels scattered. They place powerful symbols on fingers meant to rest. They wear inherited rings from past relationships on fingers meant to hold new beginnings. They wear oversized bands on the pinky, silencing their communication. They wear cheap, synthetic stones on the middle finger, wondering why their finances feel unstable. But in Feng Shui, intention is everything. Energy flows where structure leads it, and placement is structure. So before you wear a ring, ask, what do I want to reinforce? Is it stability, vision, support, agility? Then ask, where does that energy live in my body? Which finger channels it? Finally ask, does this ring match that intention in form, material, and weight? If the answer is unclear, wait. The body will tell you when placement is aligned. You will feel a quiet yes, not just in thought, but in posture, in energy, in how the ring feels against your skin after an hour of wear. Because in the end, the function of a symbolic ring is not to impress others or mimic culture. Its function is to remind you, to structure you, to hold what you're trying to grow. And just like a good garden, it begins not with what you plant, but where. You don't grow wood in a metal zone. You don't force fire into a water channel. In Feng Shui, placement is not a detail, it is destiny. So place your rings as you would place your priorities, with clarity, with alignment, and with the quiet power of knowing that energy, once structured, does not need to be forced. It simply flows. What to avoid? Common ring mistakes that restrict wealth flow. In Feng Shui, structure is not ornamental, it is functional. And when we work with symbolic tools such as rings, the objective is not to decorate but to direct, to create clarity, not noise, to stabilize energy, not scatter it. A symbolic ring, when worn intentionally, becomes an extension of one's energetic system, subtle yet influential, lightweight yet deeply encoded with meaning. But a misused ring becomes the opposite of its purpose. It begins to send scrambled signals into the field. And when energy doesn't know what to respond to, it either ignores a request entirely or amplifies what's most unstable. That's why understanding what not to do with symbolic rings is just as essential as knowing what to do. Because even a well-chosen ring, made of natural stone and worn on the right finger, can lose its function if placed into the wrong context. The first mistake many people make is wearing too many symbolic rings at once. In modern style culture, layering jewelry is a visual expression of personality. But in energetic language, each ring, especially those embedded with stones or sacred symbols, acts like a transmission. It's not just an accessory, it's a signal. And when your fingers become crowded with competing signals, the field around your hands begins to fragment. The body's natural energy cannot prioritize. It cannot distinguish whether you're asking for protection, visibility, wealth, healing, or expansion. And when the message is unclear, the result is friction. You may find yourself inexplicably tired after public events, scattered during meetings, or unusually sensitive during conversation. This doesn't mean that energy has turned against you. It means the architecture of your signal has collapsed under its own contradiction. A ring is not more powerful when added to others. It is most powerful when isolated, clean, and focused. In Feng Shui, simplicity creates strength. Choose one or two rings at a time, each with a defined purpose. Let one represent wealth stability and the other communication clarity, if needed. But do not mix intentions without structure. The energy field will respond to what is consistent, not what is crowded. The second common error is wearing your symbolic wealth ring during emotional turbulence, especially grief, intense anger, or interpersonal conflict. This is not superstition. This is physics of resonance. A ring by its nature is an absorber. It sits directly on the body's energetic meridians and collects vibration through the skin and bloodstream. When you wear your ring during an argument, a heartbreak, or a moment of deep sadness, it doesn't just witness your emotion, it absorbs it. It records that frequency. And if that ring is meant to symbolize wealth, success, or momentum, what you've now encoded into its structure is not clarity, it's chaos. That confusion gets imprinted into your energetic posture. Over time, you might notice financial setbacks, inexplicable delays, or a feeling of hesitation when making big decisions. The cause may not be your effort or mindset. It may be energetic interference embedded in a ring that was present when your field was most vulnerable. That is why symbolic rings should be treated as sacred tools. Just as you wouldn't perform healing while ill or cleanse others while carrying exhaustion, you shouldn't wear your energetic amplifier while your system is in collapse. Remove your ring during emotional storms. Let it rest. Let it reset. Then, when clarity returns, cleanse it, re-intend it, and wear it again. The third mistake is often made with good intentions, allowing others to wear or try on your ring. Perhaps a friend admires your jade band. A loved one wants to try on your obsidian circle for fun. These moments seem harmless. But in energetic logic, the moment another person's field interacts with your tool, a silent boundary is crossed. Their energy imprints onto the object. Their field modifies its frequency. And unless the ring is consciously reset, it will continue to carry that additional resonance, sometimes neutral, sometimes helpful, often disruptive. This is especially dangerous with wealth rings or protective bands, which are designed to sync closely with your unique energetic rhythm. Just as you wouldn't let someone else use your toothbrush, you should avoid letting others borrow your symbolic ring, no matter how brief the exchange. If the event has already occurred, don't panic, but do cleanse the ring with natural salt water, place it under sunlight or the moonlight for 24 hours, and re-anchor its purpose through verbal affirmation or silent intent. Always remember, a ring's strength comes from exclusivity. The more personal the object, the more powerful its signal. The fourth, and perhaps most overlooked error, is careless storage. Symbolic rings, especially those used for energetic alignment, should never be tossed into junk drawers, left on bathroom counters, or thrown onto the floor beside keys and coins. In Feng Shui, the energy of an object is not contained only in its material. It is shaped by how and where it is stored. The floor, for instance, is not neutral ground. It is the base level of qi, the zone where stagnation accumulates, where heavy energy settles. When you place your wealth ring on the floor or in a drawer filled with chaos, you are instructing your subconscious that this ring is no longer sacred, that its signal can be ignored. Over time, its function will diminish. The qi around it will dim, and what was once a tool becomes mere ornament. To protect your ring's function, store it in a dedicated space. A wooden bowl lined with fabric, a ceramic dish on your desk, a natural linen pouch kept on a shelf, not under clutter. Let the object rest where it can breathe, where energy can circulate, where it can recharge silently and await your next use. Ritual is not just in use, it is also in rest. To tie these mistakes together into one unified lesson, remember this: a symbolic ring does not perform magic. It performs alignment. It responds not to belief, but to structure. And the structure you create around it, how often it is worn, when it's removed, where it's placed, who touches it, becomes the architecture of its impact. The more intentional you are, the more precise the signal. The more careless you are, the more diluted the effect. When a ring becomes heavy with mixed energy, you'll feel it. Not physically perhaps, but emotionally. You'll hesitate before putting it on. It won't feel like it once did. Or you'll notice moments of miscommunication, poor timing, or financial leakage that seem out of sync with your efforts. These are not omens, they are signals. Signals that the object once used to amplify has become an absorber of scattered qi. This is not a failure, it's an invitation to reset, to cleanse, to return the object to structure. Because a ring's job is never to impress. It is not there to dazzle or to distract. It is there to align, to remind you of what you've committed to hold that commitment when your focus wavers, to amplify it when your energy is strong, and to shield it gently when your field is vulnerable. Let your ring do its work, not by magic, but by precision, not by appearance, but by integrity. That is how symbolic objects function in Feng Shui. That is how structure supports flow, and that is how one small circle of stone and metals becomes more than jewelry. It becomes architecture for your intention, your frequency, and your future. Let it serve you, but first, serve it by choosing wisely, wearing consciously, and storing with respect. Because in a world filled with noise, structure is clarity, and clarity is wealth. Michelle Obama's intentional adornment. In the realm of public life where every movement is documented, every outfit scrutinized, and every gesture dissected, there are those who rise not through noise, but through the architecture of presence. Michelle Obama is one of them. Her influence has never come from volume or excess. It comes from structure, measured, rooted, intentional. And though she has rarely spoken about the esoteric or the symbolic in a direct way, her visual language tells another story. One of calibration, one of energetic precision, one of adornment, not as decoration, but as declaration. It was during a backstage interview with one of her stylists, quietly tucked into a post-tour recap, that a small but telling detail emerged. Michelle, preparing for major public appearances, often requests a specific ring configuration, a jade or obsidian band worn on the left middle or ring finger. It is not always visible, it does not demand the spotlight, but it is always there. "It makes me feel grounded in the room," she once said. A simple sentence, but inside it lives an entire energetic philosophy, whether she consciously names it Feng Shui or not. Let's unpack that with precision. The choice of jade or obsidian is not arbitrary. Both are naturally occurring stones. Both are heavy with symbolic weight. Jade, in classical Chinese metaphysics, represents longevity, emotional balance, and the harmonizing energy of earth. It is revered not only for its beauty, but for its ability to hold and distribute qi evenly, without excess, without collapse. It is the stone of the wise elder, the one who governs without grasping. Obsidian, by contrast, is volcanic glass, a protector. It absorbs what you don't see. It deflects what you cannot prepare for. It is not a stone for the faint-hearted. It is for those who must walk into rooms filled with unspoken currents and remain unmoved. Now consider placement. The left hand in Feng Shui is the receiving hand. It is yin, open, absorptive, reflective. It's the hand that invites, the hand that collects support, the hand that tunes into the field rather than pushing against it. When Michelle wears her ring on the left, she's not trying to exert control. She's stabilizing her receptivity. And which finger does she choose? The middle or the ring? The middle finger is the energy of earth, of structure, of internal alignment. The ring finger is the energy of fire, of partnership, of long-term connection. Both are deeply symbolic. Both govern domains she consistently excels in, groundedness and relational grace. Her placement of a jade or obsidian ring in these zones doesn't just echo Feng Shui logic, it embodies it. To be clear, there is no evidence that Michelle Obama is consciously applying ancient metaphysical rules when she chooses her accessories. But that is precisely the point. When energy is correctly aligned, it doesn't require mysticism. It requires intuition and clarity. The body knows when something feels right. And when an object placed on the skin makes you feel grounded in the room, that object is not just a ring. It is a tuning fork, a signal booster, a quiet structure that makes presence possible. For a woman who often stands under public judgment, who holds space for others while asserting her own boundary, that ring is not a prop. It is a tool. And whether she names it or not, it works. For viewers, the lesson is not to mimic. The lesson is to translate. You don't need a global stage to create energetic structure. You don't need a private stylist to access symbolic alignment. You don't even need jade or obsidian if your frequency responds more deeply to another stone. What you need is what Michelle models: discernment. The courage to choose one object, wear it with clarity, place it with care, and let that object hold a job. That's all. You don't need a drawer full of wealth rings. You don't need 7 fingers covered in crystal. You need one ring, chosen, placed, respected. One ring that tells your nervous system, we are safe, we are steady, we are focused. And when the field around you reflects that message, guess what? The external world begins to mirror it. This is the deeper logic of Feng Shui. It's not about superstition. It's about symmetry, not just of form, but of message. And a ring worn the right way in the right place at the right time becomes a bridge between your internal state and the outcome you're ready to receive. When Michelle Obama walks into a room wearing that subtle jade band, she's not hoping for confidence. She's setting the tone of it. She's not performing strength. She's embodying it. And whether the audience ever notices the ring doesn't matter. The room notices her. So ask yourself, not as a follower of fashion, but as a practitioner of form, what kind of energy do you want to feel when you walk into your next challenge, your next opportunity, your next conversation that could shift the trajectory of your life? Do you want to feel scrambled, scattered, reactive? Or do you want to feel like the room stabilizes around your presence? The difference may begin with what you place on your finger. Choose the right material, one that resonates, one that grounds. Place it on the finger that governs the field you wish to focus on. Wealth, use the left middle. Relational ease, use the left ring. Creative persuasion or fast decision-making, try the right pinky. And once chosen, do not dilute it. Do not wear 5 other rings that cancel its message. Do not lend it to friends. Do not wear it while grieving, shouting, or doubting. Let that ring do its job. Let it hold your alignment while you move through the noise of life. Michelle Obama's story is not about celebrity mimicry. It's about energetic intentionality. She has never claimed to be a Feng Shui practitioner, but she doesn't have to be. Her field is structured. Her presence is calibrated. Her ring isn't loud, but it says everything. And so can yours. Not because it's expensive, not because it's rare, but because you choose to wear it with consciousness, not convenience. In the end, it's never about the object. It's about what the object reinforces. You don't need a presidential podium to act with clarity. You just need your own hand and the courage to adorn it with something that speaks your future into form. Quietly, consistently, intentionally, just like Michelle. Final, you are not your ring. You are not your stone. You are not your silver or your jade or your carefully chosen band. But you are the one who gives it meaning. You are the catalyst, the decision maker, the one who moves energy into form, intention into structure, clarity into rhythm. A ring is nothing more than a vessel until you choose to give it a bow. And once you do, it becomes an extension of your focus. A quiet teacher, a mirror, a container for the version of you that already knows how to hold wealth. Not just money, but value. Not just income, but alignment. Feng Shui does not promise magic. It never has. It doesn't say, place this here and all your problems dissolve. It says, structure your space as you would structure your choices. Choose with clarity, align with purpose, and let the world respond accordingly. Because energy always responds, not to superstition, not to wishful thinking, but to form, to frequency, to the silent signals you send through every object you carry, every corner you care for, every ring you place on your finger and wear with conviction. So the next time you slide a ring onto your hand, pause, not to wish, but to listen. What are you calling in? What are you reinforcing? What part of yourself are you ready to grow? Let the ring remind you not of what you lack, but of what you're already building. Let it anchor you in intention. Let it echo your steadiness when the world feels unsteady. And above all, let it do its work not because it is powerful, but because you are. If today's video helped you see rings and yourself differently, I invite you to share your experience in the comments below. Which finger are you most drawn to realign? What ring in your life deserves to be chosen with new purpose? I'd love to hear your reflections. And if you'd like to support this space of mindful, grounded Feng Shui wisdom, please like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. We are close to reaching our 2,000 subscriber milestone, And every bit of your support helps us keep creating content that turns everyday life into meaningful structure. Thank you for being here, for walking this path of intentional energy with me. Let's keep building one choice at a time, one symbol at a time, one ring placed with clarity at a time.